This guy is a monster. This guy is a piece of evil crap. This is a subhuman pile of utter useless zombie entrails. This fucker is an amoeba. He is a fucking curse on. He's a walking pustule, a fucking curse on the entire species. He's a sick piece of crap, and he should not even be anywhere near a health cabinet position, and he should not be anywhere near even any kind of government agency position at all. He shouldn't even be in charge of anything. You know who I'm talking about? I'm talking about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. My name is Scott Schneider. This is Fed Up in Minnesota. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and comment so we can grow a community for this channel.
Presently sending a final update to the onboard computers for antenna management. And we have a go for auto sequence start. And we have auto sequence start. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Earlier today, the man Donald Trump pledged could go wild on health tried to defend his record in a fiery hearing on Capitol Hill. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. got into yelling matches over and over with senators about his handling of the CDC, his stance on vaccines, and his overall approach to health of the American people. My colleague Ryan Nobles has a look at all of it today.
Tonight, the grilling.
Sir, you're a charlatan.
Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy pressed by senators about his controversial shakeup at the CDC.
You're making things up to scare people, and it's a lie.
With respect, I do not think I'm the one making things up.
Kennedy questioned about changes to recommendations for the COVID vaccine, to say it's only needed for older and high-risk Americans, which a CDC panel will review within weeks. This from Republican Bill Cassidy, a medical doctor whose vote was critical to Kennedy's confirmation.
I would say effectively we're denying people vaccine.
Democrat Elizabeth Warren arguing the new recommendations mean some people can no longer get COVID boosters at the pharmacy.
I'm not taking them away. Everybody can get access to them.
No, they can't walk into a pharmacy the way they could last month and get access.
It depends on the state. It depends on the states.
A year ago,
but they can still get it.
But Rachel Sampers-Alaya says she's been unable to schedule a COVID booster, and she's worried about her daughter with asthma.
My biggest concern right now is going through the winter and ending up with COVID and having a kid end up in the hospital.
Another flashpoint, the firing of CDC Director Susan Monarez, who today writes she was dismissed because she refused to pre-approve the recommendations of a vaccine advisory panel newly filled with people who have publicly expressed anti-vaccine rhetoric.
I did not say that to her.
So she's lying today to the American people in the Wall Street Journal.
Yes, sir.
Kennedy, who's pushed debunked theories linking vaccines to autism, saying he's not against them.
Saying I'm anti-vaccine is like saying I'm anti-medicine. Well, I'm pro-medicine, but I understand some medicines harm people.
And saying,
Wait, saying you're anti-medicine? You are anti-medicine, you son of a bitch. What a stupid ass. Yeah, what are you? Oh, you're not anti-medicine? Come on, dumbass.
Revamping the CDC is necessary because it made critical mistakes during the pandemic.
When its disastrous and nonsensical policies destroyed small businesses, violated civil liberties, and the people at CDC who oversaw that process, who put masks on our children, who closed our schools, are the people who will be leaving.
Today, he was pressed about how many people died from COVID.
You don't have any idea how many Americans died from COVID?
I don't think anybody knows that because there was so much data chaos coming out of the CDC.
You were sitting as Secretary of Health and Human Services? How can you be that ignorant?
And tonight, a former CDC director says Kennedy is dangerously undermining the institution.
This is about not fundamentally being grounded in the evidence and the data that should drive decision making, and that is why we raised the alarm.
I told you we needed a deep breath tonight. With that, let's get smarter with the help of our leadoff panel. Peter Baker is here tonight, chief White House correspondent for the New York Times. Dave Weigel, political reporter for Semaphore.
We don't need we don't need to take a deep breath. This is where we need to be. We need to be fighting. We need to be fighting and fighting, and we need to be crushing these people. We need to be kicking their asses, taking names, and not relenting. There's no time to sit down and take a breath. Nobody needs to take it easy.
And for his first-time visit to the 11th hour, Jake LaHutte joins us, senior writer for Wired, covering Trump and, of course, his White House. All right, Peter, what does today's hearing say about where the Make America Healthy movement stands? Let's be clear. Millions of Americans believe we need to overhaul our health system. We need to overhaul how we pay for health care in this country. We need to reconsider the kind of foods we put in the American people's bodies. However, the man leading the Make America Healthy Again movement, did he get his truth across?
That's not up to the government. That's up to us to make that kind of choice. The government should not be involved with that other than recommendations.
Well, look, I think you're right to say there are serious issues on the table here, right? And he raises serious issues. I mean, RFK Jr. is touching upon some concerns that a lot of Americans have about the products they put in their bodies, the health of, the value and efficacy of various medicines and vaccines and so forth. But because it seems so politicized, because it seems so ideological, because he in fact seems to be advancing what appear to be fringe theories and, out of the mainstream views of the world, it's only in fact polarizing the debate rather than having a thoughtful conversation about how to make America more healthy.
Peter, what else are you hearing from the White House, though? I mean, on one hand, I guess Donald Trump likes that we're not starting our shows talking about Jeffrey Epstein, but could Donald Trump have been happy with what he saw from RFK today? I can't imagine the answer is yes. Yes.
I can't imagine. Okay, two things. First off, he doesn't want to make America healthy again. He wants to destroy health. That's what he's there for. The Make America Healthy Again is a bunch of bullcrap. It's something for him to hide behind. Number two, why would Trump be unhappy with what he saw on Capitol Hill? Trump thrives on chaos. Trump thrives in anger. Trump thrives on vitriol. This is what he wants. He wants the destruction of the HHS. This is what he wants. How could he not be happy? This is everything he hoped for when he put RFK Jr. in. At the beginning of the segment, you said that Trump wanted him to go wild on health. Well, he's going wild on health. So how can Trump possibly be unhappy? Don't underestimate the monsters in this dictatorial regime.
Yeah, look, I don't think the vaccines and all of that are his top issue. He gave RFK Jr. some license when he decided to hire him. As you rightly reminded us, he said go wild. But it's not his personal issue. It's not something he personally feels strongly about. You're right, in fact, to remind us that he was responsible for the vaccine for COVID that RFK Jr. now is questioning. That arguably was one of the most important accomplishments of Trump's first term. In fact, when my wife, Susan Glasser, and I interviewed Trump after he left office about the vaccine, he was proud about it at first. I interviewed him in April 2021. He said, yeah, he was proud about it. He would, in fact, thought about giving a PSA, a public service announcement, urging people to take it because they thought it was so important for them to take it. By November of that year, we went back, interviewed him again for our book. By that point, he had disassociated himself from the vaccine. He himself had once helped push into existence by saying, well, I had no plan to do any kind of PSA. I'm not for it. I'm not telling people what to do. And it's a reflection of the power of the MAGA base. That even Trump, who in fact, of course, brought the vaccine into existence through Operation Warp Speed, would want to distance himself from it because he doesn't want to offend his own political base.
It is truly astounding because many would argue that Operation Warp Speed was the crowning achievement, the best thing that Donald Trump did in his first administration, and all he does is try to distance himself. Jake, it sounds like more and more Republicans are pushing back or are basically giving the hand to RFK Jr., especially those in swing districts. But will that amount to anything?
Well, it's funny because I was having some conversations with folks, some longtime Trump advisors, some people in the White House, a couple of months back. And this is around the aftermath of the Elon Musk-Trump breakup. And a couple of them said something similar, which I thought was interesting, which is basically that in the kind of internal betting markets of Trump's inner circle, everyone thought that Elon would outlast Bobby, as they love to call him.
Yes.
And I think the thinking behind that was he had sort of outlived his purpose to a certain extent, that, yes, he was very effective during the election at essentially being a wedge candidate and being able to peel off some of those new age wellness folks. But what value does he really add now? And the weird contradiction I see unfolding here is that we're going to keep seeing more grumblings from the Hill. I think that is not going to stop. It should grow, if anything. But on the other hand, you have folks like Ron DeSantis in Florida who are taking away all vaccine mandates, and this is becoming much more of a central.
In Florida, let's be clear, the state that got that were like first in line to get the vaccines, right? Ron DeSantis, who sent vaccines early to wealthier private communities in Florida where senior citizens live, now they're saying, we don't need them here. I remember what you did, Ron. All right, Dave, after the hearing, Vice President J.D. Vance went on social media with a message for the senators who were.
Okay, and now to reflect on what we just heard. This whole notion that Trump's ever going to fire RFK Jr., forget about it. As I said, Trump installed him, put him in place just so he could do the things that he's doing now. And everything seems to be going just perfectly that way. He's not going to fire him. He's not going to get rid of him. As long as RFK Jr. is loyal to Trump, Trump will not get rid of him. That's what Trump wants. That's what he's doing.
Grilling RFK, and I am quoting his words directly. "You are full of shit, and everyone knows it." This is what our vice president said regarding public health. How did we get here, Dave?
Well, Jake set it up well, and Secretary Kennedy boosted that on X after Vance said that. The rest of that post, which you can see, is about gender medicine as endorsed by WPATH. And the larger context for Kennedy and the role of the administration, however safe he is, the idea that he has brought into the second Trump term that the medical community cannot be trusted, and this administration should use its powers to attack it, to question it, to roll back its advice, that is very prevalent throughout this administration. You have, at the same time this hearing's happening, people in the White House egged on a little bit by conservative media, saying that they should visit the issue of whether transgender Americans should be seen as mentally ill and therefore not allowed to have firearms. That's not something you're going to see buy-in from TSM, from WPATH, from medical organizations. It is something entertained by folks in the White House. And I was at the National Conservatism Conference this week. Kennedy, when he was mentioned, was one of the most popular figures for that reason. I should say for the reason that fighting online censorship during COVID, that's popular, but also the reason that he is attacking the medical establishment as if it has no credibility. If it has no credibility and it's treated that way, what can the administration do? What powers can it take for itself? It's a vast horizon that they're walking over.
Before we talk about what Jen Psaki said about this whole debacle, the folks in the last segment, the 11th hour, seem to be missing a few things. They don't seem to understand a couple of primary things. First of all, Donald Trump chose RFK Jr. for a reason. He chose him to dismantle the Health and Human Services. He chose him to dismantle the science aspect. Donald Trump wants him in there. He's not going to fire him. He's not going to fire anybody as long as they're loyal to him. They're put in place by Donald Trump to do the very things they are doing. That is, to start enacting a eugenics movement that wipes out poor and middle-class people, disabled, the weaklings of society, the non-producers, the useless eaters, as they used to call them in Germany. Yes, this is what the fuck RFK Jr. is all about. He is a monster. He is a piece of crap. He is a cheater. He is a liar. He's a former fucking heroin addict. He's never done a damn thing in his life. He was given this job. He has no expertise at all, and he doesn't have a shred of medical knowledge or understanding in his fucking worm brain. He has no idea what he's doing. He doesn't care. He's there to dismantle. His New Age, make America healthy wellness crap is full of the same kinds of dumbasses who don't have a shred of medical understanding or knowledge and don't care. He hates the COVID vaccine. He thinks it's the worst thing ever invented. And yet he stands up today, as we'll see in a later segment with Lawrence O'Donnell, and pretends that it's the greatest thing Trump ever did, but he only because it benefits Trump. This is a man who cheated on his wife, I think, 35 times, and she committed suicide as a result. You think he gives a shit? No, he doesn't. My name is RFK Jr. I'm RFK Jr. I think everybody should be healthy again. I am the greatest. I think I know exactly how to make America healthy. America healthy. I want to make America healthy. I make America healthy by destroying America's health system. I have no doubt, no knowledge, and no care. He's an asshole. He's a fucking asshole. And he's basically, at this point in time, would be Trump's version of Joseph Mengele. Yes, I am serious. Joseph Mengele. Because he is the start of a movement that is, again, trying to wipe out, or that will be determined to wipe out anybody, the elderly, the weak, the disabled, anybody who doesn't contribute to the oligarchy, is a waste of money according to them, and doesn't have any kind of meaning to this society, or to the oligarchy, for example, at all. Here's Jen Psaki.
But today, Trump's Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. showed the country once again that he is not just a raving conspiracy theorist, and he definitely is one of those. He is also a pathological liar. Take this exchange, for instance.
Just last week, in the days after the tragic shooting at Annunciation Catholic School in my home state of Minnesota, you went on Fox News blaming school shootings on antidepressants. You have no evidence of that because you have no evidence of a connection. And you want to talk about...
You're just saying something. You're just making stuff up.
You know, this is what you say, right? Secretary Kennedy, when someone presents you with information that does not fit...
I did not blame that shooting. I have no idea whether... I have no idea, and I never said that. You're making it up. You're twisting. Yeah, you are. You are being dishonest right now.
Okay. So to recap quickly, Minnesota Senator Tina Smith asked RFK Jr. a very reasonable question, which was why he went on TV after a horrific shooting that took place in her state of Minnesota that left 21 people wounded, 2 children dead, and entertained the completely baseless conspiracy that antidepressants and not guns are the culprit behind America's mass shooting problem. And Secretary Kennedy's response was, you just heard him do it repeatedly, was that isn't true. Senator Smith is just making it up. She's being dishonest. Roll the tape, please.
We're launching studies on the potential contribution of some of the SSRI drugs and some of the other psychiatric drugs that might be contributing to violence.
Okay, that clip that you just saw was 1 week ago tonight on Fox News. And it wasn't just that one reference. Kennedy repeatedly went along with that narrative.
So I've never seen that medicine, but you're saying that if you get it, some of the side effects could be homicide, suicide?
Well, there are black box warnings on some of these psychiatric drugs that warn about in their clinical trials that they saw suicidal and homicidal ideation.
Now, to be abundantly clear, and I've already said this, I'm going to say it again, there is no evidence, none whatsoever, linking antidepressants to mass shootings. But still, Secretary Kennedy fanned the flames of that conspiracy repeatedly and then pretended he didn't. And that was far from an isolated moment during the hearing today. I mean, for hours today, RFK Jr. sat in front of the Senate Finance Committee and obfuscated, misled, and brazenly lied about one thing or another. Take this exchange about access to health experts.
How is that going to happen with the Medicaid cuts that are taking place?
There are no cuts to Medicaid.
There are no cuts to Medicaid. Okay, that is how RFK Jr. responded to a question of how Americans would continue to get health care services after Medicaid cuts from Trump's big ugly bill.
Son of a bitch. He's a son of a bitch. You motherfucking lying son of a bitch. You're just like your fucking daddy Trump. You're just like every other fucker in that cabinet. Just like fucking J.D. Buttface Vance, who sat there and backed you up. Yeah, you're all brothers, aren't you? You're a brethren. You're a brotherhood together. You're all fucking lying propagandist shill pieces of crap. You want to kill people. You want to destroy people. You want to lie about SSRIs and life-saving psychiatric medication, you piece of shit. And you fucker, you are up in Capitol Hill and you are running HHS. This is the monstrous bullshit that is the feces being dumped on us by fucking shitbrain Trump and his fucking shitbrain cabinet members, all handpicked by shitbrain himself.
The man in charge of America's healthcare system simply denied that the bill that has the biggest cuts to Medicaid benefits in history made any cuts at all. The Congressional Budget Office, just to give you a specific stat here, estimates that Trump's big ugly bill cuts approximately $1 trillion from Medicaid funding over the next 10 years. But according to Kennedy, there are no cuts. No cuts to see here. Nothing to see here whatsoever. I mean, even after being caught in that $1 trillion lie, Kennedy continued to try to sell the American public a complete bag of goods. Check out how Kennedy gets fact-checked live as he tries to mislead the public about the impact of Trump's big ugly bill on America's rural health care system.
It's going to be the biggest infusion of federal dollars into rural health care in American history.
Yeah, you know why? Because you're cutting $150 billion for rural hospitals. You're putting $50 billion back. That's not an infusion. That's a loss of $100 billion.
Thanks, Bernie.
Okay, everybody can feel the burn on that one, and it does not take a mathematician. Because here's the thing. Imagine if I stole $150 from you, and then I gave you $50 back. And then I went in front of the U.S. Senate to brag about how much money I gave you. How generous of me. That is basically how Secretary Kennedy tried to spin the Trump administration's cuts to rural health care today. But of course, the issue that took the cake today, and boy, was there competition, was the issue that Secretary Kennedy has centered his public persona around now for years, vaccines.
So let me ask you, when were you lying, sir? When you told this committee that you were not anti-vax, or when you told Americans that there's no safe and effective vaccine?
Both things are true.
Okay. Now, this is the same man who has claimed he is not anti-vax for years now, even though Kennedy has been one of the most prominent, prolific anti-vaccine voices in the country, including through the height of COVID. And now that he's actually in charge of America's public health care system, he's attempting to use his position to reshape the national narratives around vaccines to fit his views, despite, of course, an overwhelming amount of actual scientific evidence to the contrary.
Would you accept the fact that 1 million Americans died from COVID?
I don't know how many died.
You're the Secretary of Health and Human Services. You don't have any idea how many Americans died from COVID?
I don't think anybody knows that.
Now, the CDC, one of the agencies that Secretary Kennedy is in charge of, does in fact know that, as in fact anybody could who looked up public data. I mean, from the beginning of 2020 up until the 23rd of last month, a staggering 1,231,440 people died of COVID in the United States. What Secretary Kennedy means when he says that nobody knows how many Americans died of COVID is not actually that nobody knows. People know. What he means is that he does not like the data. Data that, again, is from an agency that he oversees. In Secretary Kennedy's warped mind, the issue is not the virus. It's the vaccine. So data showing just how deadly the COVID virus has been in America is inconvenient for his narrative. Independent studies estimate that the COVID vaccine has saved literally millions of American lives. But Kennedy, for whatever reason, there's many, is still a vaccine skeptic. And he's trying to force that skepticism out on everybody else. I mean, last week, Kennedy abruptly fired the CDC director just 29 days after she took over the agency. This morning, that fired CDC director published an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. In it, she alleges that she was fired from her position because she insisted on rigorous scientific review of the CDC's vaccine recommendations. As she put it, I was told to pre-approve the recommendations of a vaccine advisory panel newly filled with people who have publicly expressed anti-vaccine rhetoric. It is imperative that the panel's recommendations aren't rubber stamped, but instead are rigorously and scientifically reviewed before being accepted or rejected. You see, it isn't actually Kennedy himself who approves or disapproves of the vaccines for the general public at all. It's a panel of actual medical experts inside the CDC.
ACIP is an independent panel.
Okay. But even today, Kennedy was insisting that the CDC's vaccine advisory panel, as you just saw there, was independent. He had no control over it. But here's the thing. Back in June, Kennedy fired all 17 of the panel's members. He literally got rid of every single person on the panel. And he replaced all of those actual experts with a hand-picked panel of his choosing. A panel with, you guessed it, plenty of vaccine skeptics. So today, after the former CDC director alleged that Kennedy fired her because she refused to just preemptively rubber stamp whatever that panel decided, here's how Secretary Kennedy responded to that allegation.
Would you tell the head of the CDC that if she refused to sign off on your changes to the childhood vaccine schedule, that she had to resign?
No, I told her that she had to resign because I asked her, are you a trustworthy person? And she said no. So if
I don't even know where to begin in unpacking that statement and what he just said. But I do need to show you Senator Elizabeth Warren's face after Secretary Kennedy said that. Look at her face. We were all Senator Warren in that moment when he said that. This shows you everything you need to know. Now, lawyers for the former CDC director put out a statement today saying that Secretary Kennedy's claims are, quote, false and at times patently ridiculous. They said the former CDC director stands by what she said in her op-ed and would repeat it all under oath. Watching RFK Jr. make ridiculous claim after ridiculous claim today was truly a maddening thing to watch. But the lie that actually astounded me a bit today was when he lied about something that Americans all across the country are actually experiencing for themselves right now, firsthand.
Will you tell America that all adults and all children over 6 months of age are eligible to get a COVID booster at their local pharmacy today?
anybody can get the booster.
I'm sorry?
Anybody can get it.
Anybody.
People who want to exercise their freedom of choice are being denied that.
No, they aren't. Everybody can get the vaccine.
I would say effectively we're denying people vaccine.
Senator Cantwell.
You're wrong.
They are not wrong at all, in fact. I mean, over and over again, Secretary Kennedy insisted that anyone over 6 months old in America could walk into their local pharmacy and get their COVID booster. The biggest pharmacy chain in the country is CVS. Right now, there are 3 states where CVS isn't offering the COVID vaccine at all. In 13 other states, you can only get a vaccine if you have a prescription. And no matter where you are in the country, the FDA, another agency Secretary Kennedy oversees, just restricted its authorization of the new COVID booster to only people over 65 years old or people with underlying health conditions. That means all across the country right now, people cannot, in fact, get the COVID booster. But rather than acknowledging that fact, the fact that millions of Americans across the country will undoubtedly experience themselves in the coming weeks if they haven't already, rather than acknowledging that, Secretary Kennedy just denied it. On Monday, 9 other former CDC directors that served under both Democratic and Republican presidents, published an op-ed saying that Secretary Kennedy is actively endangering every American's health. Yesterday, more than 1,000 Health and Human Services employees published a letter demanding that Kennedy resign. They also warned that Kennedy's leadership is endangering the nation's health. I know the word unprecedented gets thrown around a whole lot these days, but we have never been here before.
Just remember now what I said about what I said about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. being the 21st century version of Joseph Mengele. He is responsible for deaths from measles in American Samoa and in Texas due to his anti-vax stance and him prattling on and telling these people, these idiot MAGAs, these dumb motherfuckers with brains squirming that squirm just like his brain does, not to vaccinate their children. And now we had a measles outbreak in 2 places, at least one in the United States and another in the United States territory, that killed almost 100 people. This motherfucker stands up and lies in front of God and everybody about everything he's doing while we're sitting here watching him do it right in front of us. It just gets worse.
Well, the most dangerous Nepo baby in American history testified today, not under oath. The most dangerous Nepo baby in the world is, of course, the owner and operator of North Korea's nuclear weapons, Kim Jong-un, who inherited his dictatorship from his father. Robert Kennedy Jr. inherited his cabinet position from his father, who was the only other Kennedy to have served in the cabinet. Neither Kennedy earned a cabinet position. Robert Kennedy was appointed Attorney General by his brother, the President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, in 1961, even though Robert Kennedy had no experience as a prosecutor and had never appeared in court as a lawyer. No one other than his brother ever would have chosen Robert Kennedy as Attorney General of the United States. Robert Kennedy's nomination as Attorney General sailed through the Senate Judiciary Committee unanimously with Democrat and Republican support, and only one Republican voting against the nomination on the Senate floor on the grounds that the 35-year-old Robert Kennedy did not have enough experience to be Attorney General. Nepotism was a widely accepted practice in 1961 that surprised no one and almost never attracted public comment. The term Nepo baby would not be invented until the next century. Robert Kennedy didn't earn his jobs in Washington in the 1950s and the 1960s, but he was a serious student of and practitioner of government. And he was always growing in the job. And later, as United States Senator from New York, Robert Kennedy tried to move the country and our politics in the right direction. And he was assassinated in 1968 during his presidential campaign, in which he was trying to save lives by running against American involvement in the Vietnam War. Robert Kennedy Jr. is not trying to save lives. Robert Kennedy Jr. repeatedly today in his Senate testimony used the phrase, quote, "when my uncle was president." No Kennedy has ever trafficked more blatantly and offensively in the dead Kennedy's memories than Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has never been a serious student of or practitioner of anything. Robert Kennedy Jr. was a heroin addict in high school, college, and law school and beyond. He did not have one day of his life as a serious student. I was in one class with him in college, in a small classroom where, when he showed up, it was obvious that he wasn't really present. The first professional entry in his resume came from, of course, a family friend, the longtime Manhattan District Attorney Robert Morgenthau, who handed Robert Kennedy Jr. an assistant district attorney's job as soon as Robert Kennedy Jr. finished law school, but before he passed the bar exam. Robert Kennedy Jr. had to surrender that job when, not surprisingly, he failed the bar exam while he was a heroin addict. He was a heroin addict while he was taking the bar exam and working in the district attorney's office in Manhattan. He was breaking the law every day. Robert Kennedy Jr. did not take organic chemistry in college. Robert Kennedy Jr. did not take inorganic chemistry in college. Robert Kennedy Jr. did not take biology in college. Robert Kennedy Jr. did not take a single pre-med course in college and could not have gotten through one day of such a course. And that is who Donald Trump has put at the top of the Department of Health and Human Services, with jurisdiction over Medicare and Medicaid and everything else the federal government does in the healthcare sector. And he got that job from Donald Trump because of one word: Kennedy. Donald Trump, a lifelong attention addict, grew up obviously dazzled by the Kennedy fame machine. Fame is currency with Donald Trump. And so the most unqualified and incompetent Health and Human Services Secretary in history took his place in the Trump cabinet, working for a man whose fortune and business career was handed to him by his father. Donald Trump, the most famous Nepo baby in the New York real estate business, is a born believer in nepotism. Donald Trump, whose neurological aging has surely reached the point where he can no longer spell the word science, appears to hate expertise, especially in medical science. And so Donald Trump got the Health and Human Services Secretary that he deserves, but the country did not. Robert Kennedy Jr. has called the COVID vaccines, quote, a crime against humanity. But in today's hearing, he agreed with the Republican senator who said that Donald Trump should get the Nobel Prize for development of the COVID-19 vaccines, even though Nobel Prizes in science are actually awarded to the scientists who do the work. And so today, Robert Kennedy Jr. says that Donald Trump should get a Nobel Prize for what Robert Kennedy Jr. has called a crime against humanity. Robert Kennedy Jr. is a crime against humanity. People are already dying this year in this country from measles because they followed the guidance of the anti-vaccine warrior and madman, Robert Kennedy Jr. Robert Kennedy Jr. lies about science every time he pretends to talk about it. He has called the COVID-19 vaccine, quote, the deadliest vaccine ever made. But he did not dare say that today because two of the Republican doctors on the Senate Finance Committee don't like that kind of crazy talk. Today's hearing in the Senate Finance Committee began with a request by the former chairman of the committee and now the top Democrat on the committee, Ron Wyden, to have the witness, Robert Kennedy Jr., sworn in so that he would be testifying under oath. And the Republican chairman of the committee from Idaho, Mike Crapo, ever faithful to Donald Trump and the right to publicly lie, refused to put the witness under oath. And so the Trump cabinet member who was friends with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell did not have to testify under oath today. When Robert Kennedy Jr. was first asked by Newsweek how many times he flew on Jeffrey Epstein's plane, he said once. When the New York Post asked him about it later, he changed it to twice. In her very friendly discussion with Donald Trump's former criminal defense lawyer, Todd Blanche, now the Deputy Attorney General, Ghislaine Maxwell fills pages of the transcript talking about her friendship with Bobby, as she calls him. Ghislaine Maxwell, friend of Robert Kennedy Jr. She talked about being on the Epstein plane with Robert Kennedy Jr. And then Todd Blanche asked if she recalled there being anything inappropriate with Mr. Kennedy and masseuses or young women.
Do you have any recollection of Mr. Kennedy, of there being anything inappropriate with Mr. Kennedy and masseuses or young women on the trip you just talked about?
I never saw anything inappropriate with Mr. Kennedy.
And do you know whether he ever got a massage from one of the masseuses? Do you know either way?
I do not.
But not something you remember?
I mean, absolutely not. I mean, yesterday, if I didn't make it clear, I will reiterate today. I never, ever saw any man doing something inappropriate with a woman of any age.
Well, I guess that settles it. There's convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell, who was indicted for perjury, saying that Robert Kennedy Jr. did nothing inappropriate with masseuses or young women, and in the same breath, she delivers the pure perjury of, I never, ever saw any man doing something inappropriate with a woman of any age. And we have under oath testimony in Ghislaine Maxwell's trial that she was in the room while Jeffrey Epstein had sex with naked young girls more than once. We have under oath testimony in Ghislaine Maxwell's trial that she personally engaged in sexual activity with Jeffrey Epstein and those girls at the same time in the same room. And so the person who's telling you that Robert Kennedy Jr. didn't do anything inappropriate with masseuses and young women on Jeffrey Epstein's plane on a trip with Jeffrey Epstein is the very same person who in the very same breath tells the lie, I never, ever saw any man doing something inappropriate with a woman of any age. Robert Kennedy Jr. is more interested in what's in the Epstein files than any other cabinet member in the Trump cabinet. And today, when he was not under oath, Robert Kennedy Jr. said several things that absolutely would be perjury if he were testifying under oath, including this.
Do you think the women on the steps of the Capitol were a hoax yesterday?
I don't know about any women on the steps of the Capitol.
The women who were talking about Epstein, do you think they were a hoax yesterday?
Do I think they were
Do you think they were perpetrating a hoax yesterday?
perpetuating a hoax?
Yeah.
I have no idea what they were saying. This is the first I'm hearing about it.
You're hearing about the women on the Capitol steps saying that they believe that the Epstein information should be made public. That's the first you're hearing about it. What I'm saying is you are perpetrating hoaxes. You, as this Secretary of Health, so you're undermining the whole healthcare delivery system, and you keep trying to point to chronic disease. But you're not putting solutions on the table to cover more Americans, and you're taking away the science and technology that has made us the leader that has saved, according to the first Trump administration Surgeon General, millions of lives. And you don't want to keep that going. So, no, I don't support your continued efforts as Secretary.
Now you know what he looks like when he's lying. Of course, you already did. He actually said, I don't know about any women on the steps of the Capitol yesterday. That's a lie. That's a lie. The world knows that's a lie. And he has he believes Kennedy entitled audacity to be able to sit there and lie in that committee, to you, to the world. He believes he was born with the right to lie like that. He says, this is the first I'm hearing about it. That's a lie. You know that's a lie. Everyone knows that's a lie. Everyone in Washington, everyone in the country knew what was happening on the steps of the Capitol last night. Robert Kennedy Jr. sat in the witness chair in the Senate Finance Committee and accused United States senators of lying. That has never happened in the witness chair in that hearing room before, where I worked on the staff of that committee during hundreds of hearings over several years. The birthright that he believes he has to any job that he's unqualified for comes with, he believes, the right to lie to anyone about anything, including when lives are at stake, the right to lie to parents about how to keep their children healthy, the right to lie to this country about public health, the right to lie to the world about vaccines. He believes he has that right. Our first guest tonight, Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock, represents Atlanta, the home of the Centers for Disease Control, which was the target of a madman with a gun who killed himself after killing DeKalb County police officer David Rose and firing over 500 bullets at the CDC. The investigation found that the shooter wanted to make the public aware that he shares Robert Kennedy Jr.'s distrust of vaccines.
Did you say that the CDC was, quote, the most corrupt federal agency in the history of the world?
Not the history of the world, but definitely
Did you
within
say
HHS.
Did you say
I did not say that, but I did say it's the most corrupt agency in HHS, and maybe the government.
So you call the CDC corrupt? Did you say that CDC staff are, quote, horrible people?
Horrible people?
Did you say that they're killing children and they don't care?
No.
Okay, I think that we all have a history of listening to you and these answers, but you're on the record for a number of these statements. Despite your lack of credentials and expertise, clearly you have an agenda. It is a threat to the public health of the American people. It's clear that you are carrying out your extremist beliefs, which is why you attempted to fire Dr.
Senator, we're the sickest people in the world.
Sir,
we're the sickest people on earth.
I'm speaking.
How am I a threat?
Secretary Kennedy, for the first time, we're seeing deaths from children from measles. We haven't seen that in 2 decades. We're seeing that under your watch. You are a hazard to the health of the American people.
Can I respond to that, Senator?
No, I claim back my time.
We need to wrap
You
up.
are a hazard to the health of the American people. I think that you ought to resign. And if you don't resign, the President of the United States, who put forward Operation Warp Speed, which worked, should fire you. Thank you so much.
Well, I think that pretty much puts an exclamation point on this whole issue. It's neatly wrapped and tied in a bow now. Kudos to all of those senators for standing up and stepping up and grilling the shit out of this motherfucker. This piece of human debris needed to have his ass kicked. And I wish that they would go at every single damned cabinet member, every single person involved with Trump's, with dictator Trump's propagandist machine in the same manner. I look toward the future and hope that this is going to become more the norm. Ripping apart these pieces of crap to shreds. My name is Scott Schneider, and I am fed up in Minnesota.